Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm going to bring on the stage Sirisha Voruganti. She's the CEO and Managing Director of Lloyd's Technology Centre in India. And she was previously with MasterCard and JP Morgan and Tech Mahindra. And she doesn't know I know this, but she was recently named as a trailblazer for transformative leadership and excellence in the GCC. Maybe you just want to tell us what that was about as well, Surisha. And she's going to discuss innovation, why it's essential, explain how incremental and disruptiveness and subtlety drive success, and why leadership and support are key success factors for her. Surisha, welcome, and over to you to start your presentation.
Thank you, Michael. That was an amazing introduction, and you made my day with that award thing. So, thank you for that. So, guys, I'm going to talk to you today about navigating the future of customer experience in financial services. Actually, why financial services? I think customers today are extremely demanding. And, you look at retail, you look at healthcare, you look at edtech everywhere. I would see customer really is first in terms of the sort of experiences that they are looking for. If we can move to the next slide, right? I've actually called out on the next slide Gen Z in terms of the experience and what they're looking at, right? But I believe it's not just the Gen Zs that are looking for an amazing instantaneous gratification and an experience which is absolutely seamless. But I think all of us today expect that as technology advances. Just a moment. Unnati, can you move to the next slide? Yeah. So this is what it is, where there are a lot of things that are coming together when we talk about experiences. As I called out, and I'll explain a little later with examples on instant gratification, there is expectation of transparency and trust in transactions that are happening because customers are a lot more, understand technology, understand the issues the technology brings with it as well. So that's something that they absolutely look for. Contextual engagement. I think each one of us likes contextual engagement. We'd like our context to be saved as we come back, to do our next transaction, whether it is with the retail industry, whether it is with the banking, right? For instance, if you're looking for a set of clothes, you go back there again, you'd probably like them to give you more of the same kind. Financial wellness. Sustainable and social responsibility. So today I see, folks coming into to places which do have a very strong sustainable and social sustainability agenda, as well as a clear social responsibility that they're carrying. So what do we have here, and why is the challenge as big as it is? Because you have a very aware customer, and the expectation of the customer is really high. They're not willing to navigate and press buttons in times, because every click of the customer is probably a 15% drop of customer base for institutions like ourselves, or for, whether it is, as I said, retail, edtech, health tech, whatever it is. It's really expected that it's a connected world. It's all working very seamlessly. Somebody would like to go through a financial transaction from his kitchen where, they'd like to talk to their refrigerator. Perhaps if something gets over, then it automatically makes an order, which means it's just not about the understanding that happens on that gadget, but at the back end there is a payment transaction that can happen via a network with really no latency that we're talking about here. And it's the same thing. You sit in your car, from the comfort of your car, you'd like to go through a very easy financial transaction. You'd like to talk to your device, whether it is paying the insurance for your car, doing some other bills, because that's probably the time that all of us have, which is really our me time, and we're able to do things that we'd like to. So customer expectations and all of this is to really set that context for customer expectations and what and how those are growing. Though we call out Gen Z, but it's not just the Gen Z, as I said earlier. It is the Gen X, the Gen Y, the Gen Z as well, and the millennials, because today there are lots of lots of things, that are pushing experiences, and people are actually loving that, right? My age, we were okay with writing letters to parents, and it reached your parent a month later, and the parents were also okay with getting information about you when you were in school once a month, or whatever that was. But today, that's not the case. From there, we've moved to the age of SMSs. We've moved to, then we wanted to share a little more content, so we had MMS. Today, we're talking about, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever that is. So it's all instant, and it's not just about how you are. You'd like to share pictures of, what you're doing, what you're eating, sharing about your friends, and so on. So customer experience is that ever challenging thing for all of us. Can we move to the next slide, please? I'd just like to help you understand how do we actually get there. And the next one, this is a big one, right? The context piece. And I think just keep this in mind. What is most important today as we build out these experiences is context. And I'll also explain what it means from a back end, for companies like ourselves, because these are complicated problems. It's really about understanding customer data. It's really about building on that customer data. It's about how we store that data, how we manage that data, and how we push, a customer experience. And all of this really reducing the costs to customers. Can we move to the next slide, please? So what is the expectation from, banks or whatever they are? The expectation is that we know the context of the customers to really provide those next gen experiences. So if we look at the next slide, where we're talking, somebody is calling us, from a merchant store, for instance, right? There's a transaction decline that's happened for that particular customer, and he's at this place of point of sale, and he's calling the bank. And I don't think he's expecting us at that time to give him his account statement, right? He's actually looking at us to take care of that payment that has not gone through. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. The context is what customers expect us to know, so that we're able to easily solve a problem. There could be another customer that's actually, been talking to us about, say, tax and things like that. And based on the previous experiences or interactions with us and the timing, if somebody's calling us around, now during tax filing, the expectation is that and he's looking for a tax statement, and he likes to see that it's readily available, and he's not really willing to navigate, end screens to get to that point where he wants the tax statement for himself. So where is all this going? Can we go to the next slide? All of this, to me, boils down to these three things. One, a clear data strategy. What does that mean? How are you saving data? How is data coming into you? How secure is that data? Are you encrypting that data? Are you ensuring, you are actually classifying data as hot, warm, cold? Is cold data moving to lower cost storage? Because storage costs actually add up to the ultimate transaction cost that you want to provide to customers. What is your AI strategy in the longer run, right? In the days of AI today, of course, there are aspects of governance that we need to look at. The expectation is, how are you improving productivity at the back end on every task that you're undertaking? Be it test, be it whatever else. And how much of everything have you modernized? Because I think all these three are so important. Are you on legacy technologies? Have you actually, modernized the way that you've built out applications? Because again, why do all of these come into any particular customer journey is, how many microservices do you have? How is data hopping? As I said, again, latencies. You're really, people are not waiting for transactions to complete when they are at some point where they want to do something really quick. And it's not just about, what we as an end user or an experience provider provide. There are lots of things at the back end that need to work as well. You need to have the right devices. You need to ensure that there is enough storage on those devices to be able to do all of this. So I think all of these together are helping us provide those customer journeys. And for us, it's these three aspects that that you have on screen here that are helping us with that personalization strategy that we are trying to build out. And data becomes really the most important thing. You have, say, various journeys that a customer is involved with. They probably, for somebody like a bank, right? They're looking at payments, for instance. They have insurance products with us, or they're doing something else with us. But are we able to look at, say, a single person ID or a single, basically a single digital identity that we have for customers, and we are able to take them not just through this journey but all the journeys using that single identity? And that becomes really important, because at the end of the day, you want to do things faster, quicker, cheaper, and better for customers. And why is, again, modernization, architecting at the back end becomes really important, right? Do we have a number of microservices at the back end? And I also talked about sustainability goals, which are important, right? And too many microservices, too much of data moving around actually is not good. Have we optimized on the build out of systems that we have? Have we kind of constantly looking at, is this the best way that you have, say, a core banking platform built? Or is there, better ways in which you can, deal with or provide those experiences to customers? So all of those, I think, become really important as you're trying to provide those end user impacts that you want to create. And that's really important, because people today are probably on the Amazons and the Facebooks, and those are the or some of those other startups that are providing amazing financial services, which are very, very easy to use. And for banks, I think it's becoming important that you compete with a lot of them, right, in terms of what and how you're providing. And so these three, I think, are the cornerstones of what and how we want to get to that particular target state that I was talking about. Can we move to the next slide, please? And this slide really captures all of it, right? If you look at the center is interaction, any customer interaction. And that really depends on those 6 areas that you can see around. Context, of course, being the most important. We keep talking about an omni-channel experience where we would like to provide the same, right? Whether it is in-store, in-app, online, whatever it is, right? It is supposed to be exactly the same experience, irrespective of the channel. And we also, it's very important for any customer experience, as I said, across any industry, to be able to maintain session history and to actually, remember session history as the customer comes back to you. And also important to have the right kind of analytics that we build out, so that, if I'm looking for, if say there's, John that's looking at a particular travel that he wants to do, we would, like to provide him destinations, saying these are potentially great destinations for you to go, because if it's the summer, help him with the ticketing process, help him with, places to go see, and all of that. So it's not just about, a payment transaction that John does, but it's really about how can we help him, through this new journey that he wants to do. So analytics really helps us with building all that out for customers. And all of this, to me, leads to the end experience that we, want to provide to customers. So to me, these are really the 6 most important pillars in terms of, and for each one of them, right? Whether at the end of it you have an AI agent that is helping you, or a chatbot that's supporting you, whatever that is, I think these are the core 5 or 6 areas that we'd like to, that customers would like from us, and how we need to kind of work through all of them, right? The back end routing, the back end business logic that we need to look at for providing each one of these is completely on us. There are other areas that customers look at us too, right? I mean, so today, again, as I said, a bank is just not about, the vault and what you're saving in the vault, but it's really about a ton of other things on top of it that you can provide, right? And financial wellness is also something that that customers look at us for, right? And so it's not, again, saving into certain, say, fixed deposits or recurring deposits or things like that, but they expect a lot of, this is the money that I have. What are the instruments that I should be saving in? What's the sort of interest rates that I can get in each one of them? At this point, what's the best places for us to go save? So it's really holistic financial guidance, and education and support that customers look at us for. So again, all of these areas that I have on the chart here are things that we need to work at the back end. And if you see, each one is really, really complex in terms of, how we can build them. For instance, availability becomes really important, right? Whether it is, we have, say, a hybrid cloud environment that we have. We're talking about all the services that we provide being available to customers 99.9999% of the time, with really limited to no failures that can occur on any transaction at any point in time, day or night, that a customer uses our service. And that is, again, a very difficult problem because, in terms of how we keep up our network. The other thing customers like, and I've talked about this as well, is they want to have a trustworthy transaction. So minimizing fraud and risk. And sometimes banks see that fraudsters are hitting your network a million times in a day, for instance, right? How do you keep things safe? And how are you ensuring that if you're drawing out a pattern and there is an anti-pattern that's being modeled by the fraudsters, how do you keep improving your own technologies? Because today, even if I call out technologies and say there's AI and there's something else, the fraudsters are using exactly the same technologies to build anti-patterns as well. So I think it's really about how are we staying ahead of the game. And there is some amount of responsibility, I think, on customers as we're expecting better and better experiences, because it's really about data. It's really about what we have of the customers. The onus is on the customers too. We introduce things like two-factor authentications, where it's not just about your password, your OTP that you put in, but we'd also like to do a fingerprint scan or a retinal scan or something, to ensure we doubly identify it's the same, customer that we have. But sometimes we see that passwords are extremely weak, right? I mean, it could be just name 1 2 3 4, for instance. A lot of people do have that, or just 0000, whatever that is, right? So I think fraud and risk, as we take care as institutions to provide better experience, it's also joint responsibility that we would share with the customers, where we need to really protect our systems. And a vulnerability in the system caused by any of these areas could hamper not just your own experience, but experience for millions of others as well that are using these services. So these are the various aspects that we constantly look at. And you see ID and authentication, right? Identification and authentication also in there when we talk about sessions and things like that. So, every one of these is extremely important, as we build these systems out. Can we go to the next slide, please? So here is the future enablers with the various channels. And I talked about personalization and talked about omni-channel engagement. Digital first or mobile first seems to be, the next big trend. Everybody has these personal devices. They have them when they travel, and all of that. So they'd like to keep the same experience irrespective of their location. So, I'm in India today, I might be in Europe tomorrow, but I'd like to go through all my transactions exactly the same way. And that's where context and location become extremely important for us, right? And having the right kind of tie-ups across the industry becomes really important. And as I called out, when AI is becoming more and more important, not just for the building out a chatbot or whatever, but it's really in every aspect of our build out. So whether it is, how do we use, AI for areas like tests, say, for instance? How do we kind of, build or architect our systems better? How are we building, our infrastructure better and things like that? So, it's not just in the customer context of a chat agent, but it is a lot more. So all of these technologies are constantly coming together. In addition to this, I've spoken about, doing payments and transactions from the comfort of homes, and that's where I look at IoT, right? Again, devices coming together, devices connected with each other. I'd like to just, get home tired, return tired from office. I'd like to, probably have a cup of coffee or a drink, and and I see that there are no eggs in the fridge, right? So I'd like that, like to just talk to the device and say, can we order, some eggs or whatever it is? And I'd like the back end transactions to be seamless and the order to be placed. So I think, all of this is really coming together. RPA and technologies like that are extremely, again, important from automating a lot of manual tasks that we have, as and not just from a customer facing standpoint, but also at the back end. And the reason I'm constantly stressing what needs to be done at the back end is, at the end of the day, for any customer journey and any experience, it's about, the faster, cheaper, better thing. The cheaper is where I'd like to overstress on, because the more complex your systems, the more is the cost to customers. If you're able to reduce our run costs substantially, there's a lot more that we can give back to customers. And so for us, it's something that we would like to constantly look at and say, is there value that we're able to, give back and provide back to customers, or additional services that we can provide at the same cost for customers? And cloud computing, again, with what we can do faster, I said that there's a lot of data that we're trying to push to cloud, and maybe hybrid cloud environments, right? But it's never going to be, you can't push all data to the cloud, because that'll be a very expensive proposition. So you really need to see how you're able to classify your data, how you're able to, ensure that the cold transactions or the cold data is really put onto something way cheaper, and it's only data that I constantly use that is moved to cloud, so that things become faster. I'm able to reduce data hops at the back end across my system, so that, again, I'm able to quickly provide the data that you're looking for, right, from that customer standpoint that way. So can we move to so it's really a holistic data-driven decision making that I'm talking about in that context. Now, again, I've said this a lot of times already. Each of these areas is a very, very difficult problem to solve. And it's a very constantly and evolving environment. So whether we talk about agentic AI, we talk about blockchain technologies, we talk about augmented reality. Actually, at some point, during COVID, we were talking about holograms, where senior citizens were not able to go to the bank, or anybody was not able to go to banks. So how do we get a bank to the customer, right? So you have these holograms where it gives you a complete feeling of actually talking to somebody in the bank, and you're able to do at least the first level of conversations with those agents that you're able to see. We also built out things like virtual banks, because, again, somebody would like to have that experience of going to the banks using, technologies like virtual reality. There is also, again, other technologies that are coming in as we talk about better experiences, right? You want to do things in the metaverse, for instance, or you want to really do things in the phygital world, where you move from physical to physical rather seamlessly, right? And so there are lots of asks and expectations that are coming in from customers. And I think, as institutions or as banks, or for any financial institution for that matter, it's important for us to move along with all these movements in technology that are happening, where we are making things seamless, where we're making things extremely intuitive, where we're making things, non-intrusive for customers. For instance, card statements, right? you constantly, we send you physical paper in terms of a card statement. That happens. But sometimes, you don't always keep track of that. And not all banks do provide push notifications or SMS. Banks that do, in India, of course, there's a lot of SMSing that happens for every transaction that I do. There are companies that actually look at very non-intrusively pulling all that data and having it with them, where I can also set limits for, say, I want to spend so much on food, I want to spend so much on, on grocery or whatever that is in a month. And they'll flag off at the end of that. And if after 6 months I've forgotten a big transaction that I've made and I want to go back and look, it's very easy for me to go back to this application and look at what I've spent money on. And it's extremely non-intrusive. So there are a ton of things that are happening. And for every aspect of new experience that we're talking about, it's a complicated problem. And as I said, even fraud and risk, that's an ever increasing area of research, whether it is crypto. We are also looking at things like homomorphic encryption, quantum computing, where you're looking at, problems to solve around fraud and so on. So yeah, it's constantly evolving, constantly challenging and difficult technical problems to solve for every little experience that we're trying to provide. And there's more happening. So all I wanted to kind of convey, is as we are working through these experiences and as we're trying to provide newer and better experiences to customers, it's not done, right? It's constantly moving, and it's a tough challenge ahead, considering there are lots of variances that are coming into it, including a lot of anti-patterns that are getting built for every pattern that you build. So with that, that's all I had in this session this afternoon. I'm open to question and answers.
Sirisha, sorry, I had my mic off when I started talking. Thank you. Excellent presentation. It's raised a number of questions for me. So the first is the CX industry has been into getting rid of bad friction. But in the banking industry and maybe insurance and maybe health, there's good friction. You need good friction to build trust. How do you manage that? Because you said earlier in the presentation, 50% drop in every click that's made, and yet you need to build good friction in to build trust, I guess.
Oh yes. So I mean, well, if so, there is always this thing, right, of banks and other applications where people are just having, they're good to use, of course. But when it is to do with your money and saving your money in an institution, I think you'd like to ensure that the institution is doubly, triply careful about everything, that you're putting in there. It's a lot of hard-earned money from multiple places. So, well, they do expect some level. They're okay with some level of friction, but it can't be painfully high where, it has to be n clicks before I even find a service that the bank has, right? Or even if I know, before I know what's the sort of interest that a bank has. So I think, the good thing is they're okay to some extent, and they do believe, in a few of that. But I think the responsibility is in us to constantly ensure that we are doing the right things for customers and we are moving with technology, because again, they'd like to know, sometimes I think there are these questions of you go travel to another country, you're swiping your card somewhere, they want to understand vulnerabilities, right? I mean, how much of their data is just exposed to the rest of the world and so on. So I think some of that onus is also on us and forums like this, where we talk about, the best that banks doing at this point in time to ensure data protection of customers, and also ensuring, that we're doing our best to ensure it's a seamless experience, but some friction is absolutely necessary, as we
do
go
you
through.
actually build, sorry, I cut across you, but do you actually build in good friction?
Yes.
You do. Okay.
Yes.
to make sure it's safe, the transaction is safe.
There will be a couple of questions that we will, keep asking, right? To ensure transactions are safe, to ensure that you're sure about your transaction. I mean, if it's a couple of hundreds of thousands of transactions that you're making, we'd ask you 2 or 3 questions before a transaction actually happens at the back end. So yes,
Okay.
because once you click that button, pulling it back might be difficult.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so, and I'd like to take you a little bit forward into the future. I see a future, maybe it's 2 years away still, but where customers have their own personal agent. And maybe they will have their digital ID embedded into their personal agent. How's that going to change the banking? How's that going to change the way you approach customers in terms of the journeys when they start to have their own digital IDs? Is that going to make an impact?
Oh, I think huge. But I would still believe, and that's where our teams working on identification and verification. I think it's going to be a huge challenge for them as you start having digital identity coming in, and digital identity, probably being the whole and soul for doing everything. I would still believe you would need a 2-level authentication somewhere as you go through that process, because we have that in India, right? We have what's called Aadhaar as our digital identity, right? And but then we also have to re-authenticate saying it's me for me, though an Aadhaar reaffirms that it is me for me. So I think we'll have to start doing that as well, because otherwise it's too dangerous, especially for financial institutions. It can be okay, to play music and to do all of those other fun things, but for a payments institution, I think we'd be very, very careful before we kind of just allow that to happen.
Okay. Yeah. And again, in the future, VR, AR, and multiverse, are you exploring different ways to reach customers? And would you see that as multi-generational or more Gen Z in terms of the applications?
I think it's more Gen Z at this point in time. I do not yet see very strong use cases, very strong use cases for multiverse in the banking industry. I would see that in retail. I would see that in the gaming industry and so on. But for banking, again, as I said, some of these you'd be a little careful before you kind of get into these areas of technology to allow financial transactions. I might still want to go do this for, say, training, right, where I'm talking about financial wellness, and I could use any of these technologies where you want to train the entire family, on some of those, especially for your high net worth individuals or whoever you have, right, where we could try out these aspects. But to carry out that transaction where money is going out of your bank or money is coming into your bank, I think we'd still be a little careful before all the governance and regulatory aspects are cleared. I don't think we can use some of these technologies.
Okay. And we have a question from Miguel. How do we assure channel integration so when I start an experience on call center and go to a branch or an agent, I don't have to repeat myself? The session data is available across all channels.
Exactly. So that, I think, is all the next generation stuff that we, all our institutions are trying to build, where session data doesn't have to be repeated. And if you saw that circle of mine, one of the most important things there for context was session data. And that context is so important for every channel and that omni-channel experience that we want to provide. And that was exactly the same example that I gave on the case of tax, right? If it is that timing and if it is, what the individual is looking for, you better show him how to get to that tax statement rather quickly and not navigate, in times. And that's also the expectation from customers, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Session data is so important for context, yes, across every channel.
And Scott's asked a question. First of all, he says, incredibly insightful, sure. You break it down so very clearly. Make it seem simple. Something's that's complex, you've made seem very simple. How do you align and unify the organization's efforts towards achieving its goals?
Well, that's a difficult one, right? So, I mean, especially, but what I believe in is, I think everybody in most institutions across the world does understand that technology is fast moving. Expectations of customers are fast moving. I think there is no denying that. I mean, we've seen that in our own generation. As I said, we've moved from letters to SMS to MMS to to Snapchats and whatever else it is, and that is extremely important. Now, how do we rally an entire organization around this? I think is having clear roadmaps for technologies and really saying this is where we need to get to. These are the people that are competition for us. You don't move the needle on how we're doing things, you're going to be out of the market really, really soon. So I think it's very important to do that reality check all the time with competition and competition is not just other banking institutions or financial institutions. I think the competition always comes from places that you don't expect at all, and we've seen that in every industry. And I keep giving this example saying, the Comcasts of the world were not challenged by others like themselves, but they were challenged by Netflix. Or so you just have competition from places that you don't know. And the Kodak had competition from the mobile industry that it probably least expected competition from. So I think we really, really need to ensure the entire organization understands that. So how we build technology, how we build experiences is so very important to get to that target state of providing the next gen experiences that customers are asking for. Modular architectures, how quickly can you move it, right? If you can't hit your, so you need to be able to push code out to production really quickly. Rollbacks could mean that you're not able to launch on time and somebody else has taken that market share. So I think all of that becomes very important for you to share within the organization so people actually feel responsible, innovate responsibly, and ensure we are doing things right and are getting things out at the right time so that we're able to pick up that sort of market share that we have to. But that's a difficult one. All of these are difficult. Nothing
All
is
these are difficult. Yeah.
about rallying organizations around
Yeah.
a single story.
Yeah. And Anna's asked, can you give examples? Well, the first part of the question is, do you change for different segments the tone of voice? And if so, can you give examples of how you adapt products for youth, for example?
Yeah. So I think some of the newer technologies make that a lot more simple for us to do at the back end, right? Especially if we're going to use agentic AI, for instance, say,
Yeah.
I should be able to, if there is a consumer my age, I'd probably like to, just get that confidence by speaking to somebody who I think is slightly older. And I get that confidence that they're giving me information and I'd like to believe. The Gen Zs probably expect that a little different. So yes, that can definitely be done at the back end based on the the age group of a customer.
Okay. And finally, I must ask, you've won this Trailblazer Award for transformative leadership. Tell us just a little bit more about that before you leave it.
Well, I think we've done a greenfield build out, really quickly in India, and I think the sort of work that team's doing here has been amazing, pretty much contributing to every aspect of the bank. And I think the way we've grown is what's been appreciated in the market. It was not necessarily an extremely friendly environment at this point in time, for growth. I think, and we've been able to do that in this market, and so yeah, they've been very, very kind in in recognizing that particular effort. So yeah, very, very proud of that, and very thankful to everybody that thought we trailblazed there.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, incredibly insightful. And you made a complex subject very simple. Thank you for that. Thoroughly enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much. And maybe you'll be with us for part of the rest of the day. I hope so, to joining some of the other conversations. Thank you for your time.
I absolutely will. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you too.